If they are panicking in Brussels, well, it would be hard to tell, since during August, much of the EU is en vacances. In fact, they're not really used to anyone turning up at all. Nevertheless, someone was minding the shop today to reassure London that, well, they wouldn't receive an out-of-office auto-reply if they wanted to get in touch.
The Commission does remain available over the coming weeks should the United Kingdom wish to hold talks and clarify its position in more detail, whether by phone or in person.
But behind the scenes, there has been a shift in assumptions in Brussels. What they call a disorderly Brexit is, they think, much more likely.
The EU is finally realizing this, that a lot of people in British politics, including the government, is perhaps not pursuing this, but is willing to consider it if the other side remains inflexible. And of course the real question is, what is Ireland going to do? Nobody really knows, but if you look at it rational again, then Ireland has a great incentive to move.
But other than getting into a bit of a tangle with his jacket, there was not much that could be called a new position from the Irish Prime Minister today. He was on a visit to Northern Ireland and insisted that the backstop, designed to avoid a hard border, couldn't be renegotiated.
Our position is that the withdrawal agreement, including the backstop, is closed, but there is always room for talks and negotiations. For example, we've said that we can certainly make changes to the political declaration, and we've demonstrated before that it's possible to offer clarifications, as we did at the request of Prime Minister May.
But to the UK side, this doesn't constitute real negotiation.
Well, I'm deeply saddened that the EU now seem to be refusing to negotiate with the UK. The Prime Minister's been clear. He wants to negotiate a good deal with the European Union, and he will apply all the energy of the government and ensure that in a spirit of friendliness we can negotiate a new deal.
Boris Johnson has, of course, been to Brussels a few times in his life, most recently as Foreign Secretary. But don't expect another trip in the very near future.
We're not going to expect much over the summer. I think both sides are going to probably be testing options. And what you've got to remember is the EU in particular, they're very skilled negotiators, so they might not want to reveal how far they're willing to go at this stage in the discussions. But of course, it's a risky strategy. The longer we wait, the closer we are to the 31st of October, and the greater the prospects of no deal.
One opportunity for informal talks could come at the G7 summit, taking place in Biarritz, France, later this month. Not only will the leaders of France, Germany and Italy be there, but the EU is also a member. So might we see what are known as bilaterals in the margins?
At the end of the day, remember in 2010 they agreed a 500 billion bazooka bailout package for the Eurozone, and that was agreed over the weekend. So surely, given how important Brexit is, the UK is equal to the 19 smallest economies of the EU 27. Then rationally you would expect such flexibility to also be shown in case of Brexit.
From the EU's perspective, they will want to make sure that the Irish border, that there's a solution there, but they'll also want to make sure that this is a price worth paying, that actually these negotiations are going to make a difference when that deal returns from Brussels to London, and that it would actually pass in the Parliament.
There was nearly a diplomatic incident in Downing Street today. The Prime Minister and his Estonian counterpart forgot to wave and had to come back out.
Are you planning on going to Brussels to negotiate? Are we heading towards no deal?
As ever with Brexit, there are plenty of questions and few solid answers.
David Grossman, well, earlier today, as you were hearing, the man tasked with the UK government's no-deal preparations, Michael Gove, said he was deeply saddened over the EU's refusal to negotiate. I asked Ireland's finance minister for his response to that when we met up at the Irish Embassy in London.
That kind of tone can go both ways, because on the other hand, the British government are saying they won't engage with the European Commission until, for example, the backstop is no longer part of the current withdrawal agreement. What I think really is more important is with the acknowledgement that we all have of what the consequences could be of a no-deal Brexit.
You're talking about consequences. The Irish economy could, of course, be just as badly hit as the UK economy. You yourself have predicted, what, 55 1,000 job losses over a couple of years, shrinking growth, probably the end of the Varadkar government, if we're being honest. This could bring everything down in Ireland.
Well, from an economic point of view, what we are saying, yes, is that approximately 50 to 55,000 jobs that we were planning to be created would not be created in a no-deal Brexit. We will still have over 2.3 million people at work in our economy. We will still have an economy that is more diverse, that is more stable than it has been even in our recent past. And we will be in a position where we will respond back to the consequences of a no-deal Brexit.
So you sound fine about it then?
Oh, well, I opened up the interview by acknowledging the huge consequences of a no-deal Brexit. So I really am anything but fine about it. I'm deeply aware of what the consequences of it could be.
Can you look me in the eye, though, and say Leo Varadkar is not going to the EU and saying, you've got to help us with this. You've got to allow for some kind of creative thinking because we're going to be worst hit from all of this?
Oh, well, I can look you in the eye and say that the European Union and the Irish government have been engaging with each other now for 3 years to find our best way through the challenges that Brexit could bring. It is absolutely not a case here of the Irish government in any way going to the European Union and saying, give us more flexibility, that in some way the European Union is constraining our ability to deal with Brexit. The opposite is the case.
We've been hearing about the idea of a time-limited backstop in return for an all-Ireland deal on food and agriculture. Is that being discussed?
Well, there's so much speculation going on at the moment regarding different options and things that may or may not happen.
But that might be on the table.
Look, the stance of the European Union and the Irish government is really clear. The withdrawal agreement will not be opened again. The backstop is part of the withdrawal agreement.
Understood.
It's an indispensable part.
But we're just trying to find the creative... I mean, presumably all the politicians are engaged in trying to find the best creative thinking that gets you out of this bind. Restricting checks on food to ports, that's another idea, that it could be that meat and food is only checked in ports. Is that something that Leo Varadkar is now considering?
Well, my first hope and first expectation for navigating our way through what the coming weeks may bring is that dialogue takes place between the UK and the European Union.
What looked like strength in the beginning of those negotiations is in danger of looking like stubbornness if you still end up with a hard border through no deal. Why would you not try and shift or not encourage the EU to shift or not think of ways round this if you're going to get the hard border through no deal anyway?
But the Irish government and the European Union on so many occasions leading up to this point has made compromises, has looked to find a way through this. For example, in relation to agreeing that the backstop would be applied to all of the United Kingdom. So it's so many times...
So you're saying you're done with compromise now? You've gone as far as you can?
Well, I've already indicated, for example, in relation to in the area of the future relationship and the text in relation to that and the clarifications that could be supplied.
We're not even going to get there, though, if the withdrawal agreement's not being signed.
Oh, well, the European Union and the Commission have made clear that they're up for engaging in that area.
What would be your calm, grown-up assessment of where we will end up on the 1st of November? Do you think Boris Johnson is bluffing?
I believe that a no-deal Brexit and the United Kingdom leaving the European Union without a deal is a very credible and material risk now. And I believe Prime Minister Johnson feels differently about the relationship between the United Kingdom and the European Union and the future trust of that relationship to how Prime Minister May would have. And I believe that has added a new dynamic into where we are on Brexit.
Are you scared, Minister?
Well, I have a real direct appreciation of what a no-deal Brexit could mean for the island of Ireland, for the Irish economy. As somebody who lived in the UK for many years, as somebody who has got real deep personal links with the United Kingdom, I know what the consequence of Brexit could be. So am I scared? I'm not scared because I also understand the strength of the Irish economy. I also understand the imagination and the ability of the island of Ireland to respond back to new issues that we would face. But I do have a real appreciation of the scale of what those issues could be.
Do you think there's any chance the UK won't have left by the 1st of November?
I believe in politics, particularly in relation to politics that have such high stakes, I believe nothing is a given. I believe it is still possible that we could see agreement in which Britain enters into a transition agreement in advance of them finally departing before the European Union. But as I stand now, I'd have to be equally clear in saying that I do believe that the prospect of no-deal Brexit has grown.